A major winter storm pattern is expected to impact the eastern half of the United States by next week, where up to 30 states could get involved with very heavy snowfall, as the latest depiction of the European model depicts that a large area of the eastern half of the United States could experience over 6 inches of snow. Taking a look at how the European model wants to develop this snowstorm pattern. So, of course, we see a low pressure system located right around the Midwest by the January 21st timeframe. We should see some snow in Kansas, Nebraska, and Missouri, so make sure to watch out for that, and even as far west as Colorado. And we see ahead of this low pressure system, there's a very warm and moist environment, as well as a ridge that's bringing a strong southerly flow that's forcing a lot of that very warm and moist air further upwards, and it's going to force the air to spiral around the low pressure system, and that will create a highly unstable environment. We also see plenty of cold air behind this low pressure system as well, and we see the snow extend into Illinois as well, where Chicago could get involved, Indiana, severe weather in the south, and then of course the northeast will eventually get involved, where we see Pennsylvania, upstate New York, Massachusetts, as well as Vermont, New Hampshire, and even the northwestern portion of New Jersey gets involved with heavy snowfall from this snowstorm that's expected to impact the northeast by Monday, January 23rd. And while in this scenario, in this low pressure system scenario, it is mostly a rain event for the Interstate 95 corridor cities, it becomes a different story when we take a look at the snowstorm that's expected to develop in the 25th, where not only we see heavy snowfall throughout the northern portion of Texas and Oklahoma, we also see the snow will extend into the Ohio Valley, where heavy snowfall is possible in St. Louis, the southern portions of Illinois, as well as Indiana and Ohio, where you could get involved with 6 to 12 inches of snow. And moving forward, we see the heavy snowfall move into the bigger cities such as New York City and Boston, especially get involved with very heavy snowfall, where both areas could experience over 6 to 12 inches of snow based on this depiction of the European model, if the European model was correct. So we see a heavy amount of snowfall pretty much swallowing up pretty much the entirety of the Northeast, where maybe even Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. could get involved, depending on how far east the low pressure system moves. The European model is still very persistent that we're going to see heavy snowfall around between the 25th and the 26th of next week. So that's going to be something to pay very close attention to in the Northeast. And the European model, the reason why it wants to bring the snowfall closer to the coast in this first snowstorm is because the European model expects this ridge to be a lot weaker than what the GFS model is forecasting, which is the topic I've been talking to you guys about over the past several videos regarding this ridge. Depending on how strong this ridge is, that will determine how far east or west the low pressure system will go, and ultimately how far east or west the snow will go. Because of course, if this ridge ends up being a lot weaker, then we should see more snow up along the Interstate 95 corridor. As of right now, the European model expects that New York City and Boston will get involved with snowfall from the second snowstorm, and the interior Northeast will get involved with heavy snowfall pretty much from both snowstorms. So there's something to keep in mind, as well as the Midwest, where we do see Indianapolis, Cleveland get involved now with in the latest European model's depiction of this storm system, where you could experience 6 to 12 inches of snow, and even as far south as Arkansas, Oklahoma City could get involved, Dallas, Texas could get involved. So this would be a multi-state sort of pattern that will build for the eastern half of the United States, where we're going to see snowfall all throughout a large portion of the country. So this is at least something to keep in mind, because these next two snowstorms should impact millions of Americans as they continue to move eastward. While for this first snowstorm, I will say that the forecast is now becoming more certain at this point, because the GFS model is also agreeing for the most part regarding the trajectory and where exactly the snow will fall with this first snowstorm compared to the European model. So as a result, I'd say the certainty for this first snowstorm is pretty high at this point. So in the areas such as Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and even Michigan, you should expect at least some snowfall. So associated with this storm based on the latest depiction of the European model. And we do see that we aren't necessarily very far out from this storm impacting you guys either. We're now in between that time period between 3 to 4 days out. So the forecast is definitely becoming more certain at this point, at least with this first storm system. However, for this second one, there's still a high level of uncertainty because there's still a high level of disagreement between the two main computer models, that being the European model and the GFS model. The European model wants to bring the snow a lot further southward and a lot further eastward as well, to where the Interstate 95 corridor cities get involved, while the GFS model is forecasting the snow to be a lot further westward and northward, to where Chicago gets involved and more of the Midwest, while it's primarily a rain event for areas south of, I'd say, Oklahoma City, as well as for most of the immediate East Coast, while the interior Northeast still does experience snowfall in either scenario. So let me show you guys the GFS model right now. In terms of what the GFS model is forecasting, we do see that with this first storm system, it's very similar to what the European model is saying. So at this point, the certainty for this low pressure system is very high. They're almost taking a nearly identical sort of trajectory with this storm system, as well as where exactly the snowfall accumulation will be associated with this storm system. So as a result, I'd say the certainty is very high. The interior Northeast, as well as the areas just north of the Ohio River Valley, should watch out for heavy snowfall. And with this first snowstorm, you should expect around 6 to 12 inches in the interior Northeast. What becomes more uncertain is the second snowstorm, because of course we see the GFS model does not want to bring this as far southward. This is as a result of the fact that the GFS model expects a stronger ridge to build by the midweek of next week, where we do see that this ridge, since this ridge is so strong, the low pressure system wants to move a lot further northward. So as a result, no snow is happening in Texas and Oklahoma in this scenario, as the snow is well further to the north, and we see the snow mainly impact the northern portion of the Midwest, where Chicago gets involved with heavy snowfall, and the interior Northeast. But we see that all the Interstate 95 corridor cities, unlike what the European model is stating, is experiencing a rain event in the GFS model scenario. So we're going to need to pay close attention to how strong this ridge will actually be. It is good to point out that the European model has been the more reliable model this winter. So this could be a possibility that the storm system might lean more to the European model scenario as we approach the 24th and the 25th of January. But we can't just completely disregard the GFS model either, since it's still a very reliable computer model. I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days. Take a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly for the European model on January 22nd. We do see that there's a very strong ridge located right around the northeast, and this height anomaly is very similar to what the GFS model is stating, which is why I say that this first snowstorm, the certainty regarding where you'll exactly experience the heaviest snowfall is pretty high at this point. This is a GFS's model's height anomaly forecast on the same time period as the European model, January 22nd. We see that they're very similar at this point regarding the position and how strong this ridge is and where exactly low will be. So at this point, the certainty is very high with this first storm system. However, it becomes a different story when we take a look at the second storm system. So this is what the European model forecasts when it comes to the 500 millibar height anomaly on January 24th. We see that this low pressure system is a lot further southward than the GFS model. And another thing to point out is that the ridge is a lot weaker than what the GFS model is showing. Let me show you guys, let me compare this to the GFS model right now. This is what the GFS model forecasts when it comes to the 500 millibar height anomaly. We see that the center circulation is a lot further northward and this ridge is a lot more powerful, which means that the GFS model wants to steer this a lot further northward more quickly, to where the more of the Midwest will experience the colder and snowier side rather than the Northeast, where it's primarily a rain event. We're going to need to pay close attention over the next several days to see how exactly this ridge will build and where exactly it'll build, because I'll determine who will get the heaviest snowfall associated with this trough. Will it be the Midwest or will it be the immediate East Coast? I'll keep you guys updated regarding the position of this ridge over the next several days. This is what the European model is forecasting when it comes to snowfall accumulation over the next 6 days. We do see that this brings the heaviest snowfall to many of the Interstate 95 corridor cities such as Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. all get involved with snowfall in the European model scenario over the next 6 days. And we, of course, see just to the northwest of it, you aren't very far from experiencing 6 to 12 inches of snow. And in Boston, in fact, you are experiencing 6 to 12 inches of snow, and that much of the interior northeast is expected to experience 12 to 24 inches of snow and potentially over 2 feet of snow over the next 6 days if the European model's forecast was correct. And even moving further westward into the Midwest, Indiana, Ohio, Missouri, Illinois, Arkansas, and even as far south as Texas in the European model scenario experiences around 6 to 12 inches of snow, which would be a significant snowstorm for millions of Americans. And even further northward, you should expect 3 to 6 inches of snow based on the latest depiction of the European model. Still highly uncertain, but I'll keep you guys updated because this could be a significant snowstorm for millions of Americans, especially along the East Coast. Take a look at the GFS model's snowfall forecast. We do see that most of the snow is well further northward to where mainly the interior northeast gets impacted, while only Boston gets impacted by snow in this scenario. New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., it's primarily a rain event, but we do see that the Midwest still experiences snow associated with these next few storm systems, and even Chicago could get involved in the GFS model scenario with 6 to 12 inches of snow, and Michigan gets more involved, and as well as even Iowa gets involved, in Wisconsin as well. So this is definitely something to keep in mind all throughout the Midwest, the Northeast, and even as far south as Texas, because there's still a high amount of uncertainty with this snowstorm pattern as of right now. But the certainty will definitely rise over the next several days. So I'll keep you guys updated. So here's what the European model is forecasting when it comes to snowfall over the next 6 days. In the portions of New England, you could experience up to over 2 feet of snow and 12 to 24 inches over a large area of the interior northeast. And this 6 to 12 inch category could move as far south as Boston, New York City, depending on how strong this ridge is and how strong of a southerly flow we will see just to the east of this low pressure zone. I'll keep you guys updated. And taking a look at the Washington, D.C. area, you could maybe experience 3 to 6 inches of snow if the European model's scenario was correct, and we do see a large area of 6 to 12 inches of snow throughout the Ohio River Valley. So there's definitely a high amount of uncertainty, especially with this second snowstorm. I'll keep you guys updated, and make sure to stay tuned for more forecasts on this channel. But I thank you guys for watching.